All right, welcome in, everyone. It's time for the Sunday night live stream. I'm Bobby Burton alongside Rod Babers and Jerry Hamilton. This hour brought to you by our friends over at RogueShop.com. Rod B will tell you a little bit more about those guys if you're having problems sleeping a little bit later today and some of the things they have for you. But, hey, a lot of news and notes coming out this weekend, Jerry and Rod, starting with Steve Sarkisian getting another year on his extending his contract. One more year. Longhorn head football coach now to 2031. 7 years out from his due date, I guess, so to speak, from his contract. Longhorn chair of the Board of Regents, Kevin Eltife, and athletic director, Chris Del Conte, making sure that Sark wanted to be at Texas and getting that done for him. So that's great news. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about another key piece of the recruiting puzzle for the Longhorns and what he was able to accomplish today. Brandon Harris, University of Texas general manager, received a contract extension and hefty raise, I'm told, by the way, according to Matt Zenitz over at 24/7 Sports. Good to hear Brandon, the architect, or at least the GM of the nation's #1 ranked recruiting classes last year, also doing a lot of work in the portal as well. So good for him. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the national championship. Longhorns came one game away from it, but Ohio State and Notre Dame set to go to war a little bit tomorrow night. We'll be back here, by the way, for a special edition of Talking Ball, where we'll be watching the game and talking with you about the national championship game. Myself, Jerry, Rod Babers will join in, as well as CJ Vogel at times. We're just going to have a little fun. I hope you guys can join us this or tomorrow evening. All right, Jerry and Rod, let's start with the Steve Sarkisian extension. Jerry, I'll go to you first, buddy.
Well, I think the toughest thing for college sports right now in general is to find continuity and kind of longevity, right, and sustained success because of the portals. There's been so many of the old guard coaches that have retired, right, and said, I'm done with this. I'm out of here. You saw Larinaga quit midseason at Miami this year in basketball. It's nice to have one of the brighter minds in college football locked up for the long term, adding another year to his conference. Is that to his contract? Does that mean he's going to be there all those years? No, but what it does do is I think it ensures guys that he'll be here through the Arch Manning years, right? I mean, and that's the main thing, is to keep that continuity, try to get this thing across the finish line. And it's tougher than ever to win a national championship in college football. And it's only going to get more difficult when they go to 16 teams. But you have to have the continuity. You have to have the consistency. There's been staff consistency. That doesn't guarantee every assistant on the staff will be back next year. But starting with the head coach, there's been a lot of continuity in this program, and there hasn't been a lot of turnover. And look, with Steve Sarkisian here for the long haul now, or the longer haul, Texas is in an envious position because there's a lot of schools that are going to be fighting to keep their guys around long term.
I completely agree with that. Rod, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I think, on top of what Jerry said, because I totally agree with Jerry about the continuity factor. That's something a lot of schools and programs are going to be envious of. And Sark's has championed continuity with his staff and coaches as well. And I also think it was just a show of appreciation by Texas. Sark's name is being mentioned in other places. I think they just want to show him that they're looking at him basically to take the program wherever he wants to. Like this is more about trust in Sark. Like, we trust you with the future of the program. You've been a great caretaker of the program so far. It's like, we're going to trust you even further that, hey, 2031, we think that by then we'll be talking about multiple national titles. And hell, we won't even get to that point because by then I'm sure there'll be some other contract update for Sark, because I just think that with his name being mentioned in some of the coaching vacancies in the NFL, and like I said, I still think Sark is committed to Texas. I don't think he'll even look at an NFL job until he wins a national title at Texas, but I do think it may interest him in the future. But I think that's a national title or two down the line. So if that happens, then Longhorn fans will be fine dealing with the consequences of Sark looking, to achieve something else if he's winning national titles at Texas. But I think on top of what Jerry said about the continuity, because he's totally right, I think it's just them showing more trust in Sark. and appreciation for what he's accomplished so far. The vision that he had for the program. I mean, I know he's not obviously, finalized the achievement of winning a national title, but it's clear that his vision is working, and his plan to execute that vision. That he knows what he's doing and it's working, and we've seen that right with this kind of linear ascension that Texas is under right now. So I think it's I think on top of what Jerry said, the appreciation factor, because Longhorn fans want to show him their appreciation, but I think the university as a whole and the athletic department also want to show him that they are very grateful for where he's taken the program, and honestly, such a short amount of time in one of the probably the toughest era ever to be competitive, considering the new landscape that we're dealing with. And he's mastered that landscape in a really, really kind of progressive fashion. Like, he's been on top of the changing landscape. And I that's something I think also Longhorn fans are grateful for, because not every coach, as Jerry just mentioned, some have grown tired of it and they've decided, you know what, I'm done with it entirely. But other coaches are having a tough time evolving with this new landscape, which is, by the way, still not done. We got other major changes coming to college sports, and Sark seems to, even when he doesn't agree with, he'll let you know he doesn't agree with it. He's like, I don't like that, but this is the reality, and I am right now rooted in reality and helping this program get to the promised land.
I got another thought on what you just said there about not taking an NFL job. And Jerry, you're talking about being there through the arch years. All of those things, very accurate, in my opinion. One of the things that the original report yesterday on Sark's extension came from Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. And one of the important things wasn't just the extension. According to McMurphy, Sark declined multiple NFL interviews. And so that is something to be said for the head football coach at the University of Texas. All right, Brandon Harris, topic next. Then we're going to talk the Natty. We're also going to talk with you guys, and some of y'all's questions already seen. I've got some of them starred and ready to go, so we'll get to that in just one second. But before we do any of that, I want to ask Rod B to do us a favor and tell folks about our friends over at Rogue Shop.
All right, thank you, Bobby, and thanks to our friends over at Rogue Shop, rogueshop.com, for sponsoring our Sunday night live stream. And Rogue Shop, folks, they have a variety of different products, great products that can help you with a variety of issues. If you're having sleep issues, sleep deprivation, maybe you have anxiety, maybe you have aches and pains, different parts of your body like I do because of my playing days, but for whatever reason, our friends over at Rogue Shop, they have a lot of great products that'll really help you in a number of different ways. They have oils and creams, flour, gummies, and vitamins as well, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Make sure you use that promo code you see right there on your screen on Texas. Use that discount code, and you'll get a very special discount from our very special friends over at Rogue Shop. I've had folks come up to me, one of our friends here at On Texas Football, dedicated member of the On Texas Football family, tell me they swear by Rogue Shop. Love it. They were having sleep issues, and they use some of the Rogue Shop products daily. So you go check it out. Trust me, they have something for you there, no matter what your ailment may be. That is rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Make sure you use that promo code on Texas, and you'll get a discount from our friends at rogueshop.com. Thanks,
Rod, for doing that. Good stuff over there. Hey, the next piece we want to talk about is Brandon Harris, Texas GM. He was elevated last year from director of player personnel to general manager when Billy Glasscock left to take a general manager's role at the University of Mississippi. Jerry, Longhorns and Sark then orchestrated a number 1 ranked recruiting class, another good bountiful loot, I guess, for lack of a better term, in the transfer portal in the spring with Brandon Harris at the helm. What do you think about Texas and Sark making Brandon Harris a little bit heavier in the pocketbook these days for Brandon?
Well, I think if you're going to give Sark the extension you gave him, he gets to pick the guys to run his organization. I mean, that's the main thing, right? So he's going to make all those decisions, and naturally, if Brandon Harris is his guy, and then he is going to get compensated as well. And you'll see the other coaches as well, right, that got some extensions last year. They'll probably get a year added or raise or bonuses announced from the run to the college football playoff once again. But look, I think Brandon Harris, the whole thing again is how well do these guys work together? Are they all on the same page? Well, if Brandon Harris is on the same page with Jeff Banks and Steve Sarkisian, then he's a very valuable asset. If somebody's out doing their own thing, maybe they're not on the same page, then you don't sign the number one class. You don't put things together like they have. So, and that is the key part, Rod, is everybody in the organization on the same page. If Jeff Banks has a conversation with Brandon Harris, they're on the same page. If Sark has a conversation with Brandon Harris, they're on the same page. That doesn't mean you agree on every player, but you're on the same page for the vision. As long as you're on the same page with the vision of what Sark, and I consider like Jeff Banks the kind of the GM, and then Brandon Harris GM by title. But I would say this: he's on the same page with those guys, and that's very important because it has to run smoothly as much as there is on the plate of a head coach. Now, I think even people say, "Oh, they're a CEO." They're more than a CEO now. It's more than that with NIL and everything else. It's different than it's ever been. So you have to have people you're absolutely on the same page with, and that's Brandon Harris.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry, Bobby. Go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was going to ask you what did you have to say?
No, I was just saying that I remember when Sark, when he was talking about Brandon Harris. I remember an interview that he had this past offseason, and he was talking about Brandon Harris, and he said we see football the same way. Basically, that's our connection. We see football the same way. They see the game the same way. To Jerry's point about everybody being on the same page. And you need that because Sark's got his hands in a lot of different things. CEO, I mean, he's a play caller, play designer. We know that too, but you got to be in recruiting. You got to be, obviously involved in transfer portal acquisition, roster construction, all that stuff. I mean, retention, the job criteria seems to continue to grow and grow with the head coaching position, especially at a power program like this. And you do need people that see football the same way you do. And like Jerry said, now always agree with the vision, but understand the vision. They understand it. And so they understand exactly where Sark wants to take the program. And I always said, listen, in the NFL, because I'm a big NFL fan, so I'm halfway distracted like some of us are watching the game. But I always say you got to have the Holy Trinity in the NFL. And Sark, God bless him, he's been saying since he got here, he keeps referencing the NFL. He keeps doing it. And a lot of people don't like it because they want college and the NFL to be different. And we know more and more there's starting to be more and more similarities. Right. And Sark has talked about how he's building this program kind of how NFL franchises would be constructed with the GM and now a front office and player personnel and roster construction, really a priority on premium positions, quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, edge rushers. Like he's building it, and he has that in mind, which is why I do think at one point when he wins national titles, there will be an interest in the NFL. It just ain't right now. But I do think that there's a benefit that Sark has brought these people in around him. They do seem to see the football the same way. And the vision that Sark has for the program, needs somebody to help you execute that. That's Brandon Harris, and he trusts Brandon Harris. Like the way he talks about him, you can tell that he's got complete trust in his ability to execute. So it's been working. They all deserve a raise at this point. I mean, I'm not. They all kind of deserve raises because I didn't think the program would be knocking on the door 2 years in a row this quickly.
No chance.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it's phenomenal. They've done it so fast.
The one thing I would add that y'all talked about very well there is the idea of continuity and staff continuity. It's not just going to be Brandon Harris, though. Congratulations and hats off to him. He deserves a nice little pay raise. As I said, getting that number one recruiting class. The thing that I think about is continuity across the coaching staff and the players, because part of a GM's job too is retention, right? And we just saw Texas go through a transfer portal window where they literally lost one player in this portal that Texas fans may not have expected. Now, and that's Amari Niblack, who visited A&M over the weekend, apparently. But my point being, it's not just continuity in coaching staff or off-field personnel, Rod and Jerry. It's continuity on the team. It's guys getting second, third, and fourth year guys in your team to develop so that there's 2, 3, 4 years in the system. We've seen, and it's not just in Sark's system, it's the whole team. The defense in particular, because of that continuity, particularly on the back end, looked much better this year than it's looked at all times. So I think, yes, Brandon Harris is back. The offensive coordinator is Kyle Flood. He's expected back. Defense coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski is expected back. And then not losing a ton of players to the transfer portal. I mean, what else do you want, right? I mean, that's part of what Sark's got going on here. All right, we're going to go next to the chat line, if you don't mind. We're also going to talk about the national championship game. But first, let's go to William Niche. Buffalo had 3 possessions within the Baltimore 4-yard line and converted 2 of those with the QB sneak. Next season, does Sark use legs for short red zone? I'm going to just say this. So myself and Jerry were on a chat with somebody else, like a personal chat, talking about how these teams in red zone in the NFL, they use the quarterback in the red zone in the run game to keep teams honest. Like my thing on this is, Rod, I'll start with you, Rod, but it's not even that we suspect that they're going to run that Steve Sarkisian is going to choose to run Arch Manning heavily.
No.
But the threat will be there at least. There was never really that threat except for a zone read keep. You're not going to run Quinn Ewers on a quarterback draw. No chance. No. Right? So what does that do? Does the running quarterback alone help some of those ills Texas has seen in the red zone, Rod?
I agree. I think they do. I said it, after the Ohio State game. First of all, I think it's worth practicing a quarterback sneak, just a simple under center quarterback sneak. Like, I think it's worth just having it in your arsenal to be able to execute it for Texas. But I totally agree. If you're looking at the numbers advantage that it gives you the +1 to running game, forces that using that backside defender, that backside edge defender, that backside whatever linebacker that's going to be crashing. They have to be patient. Talk to Alex Okafor about this. Right? They hate it because it feels like they're to them. It feels like they're a wasted defender for most of that game because they're always watching the backside for that quarterback to either pull the football or for that quarterback to escape out of the backside. He said so it makes your defenders less aggressive. They can't be as aggressive as they usually are when you got a stationary quarterback. And Quinn has functional mobility, but Arch is considered a true dual threat quarterback. So it's possible that having a dual threat quarterback, if utilized correctly, will be, I'm going to say it's going to solve, but it'll be something that could help boost Texas's red zone offense, and it could help them better execute goal line offense, goal line situations. And I think just because your quarterback can run, that'll change the math a little bit for Texas. Sark hasn't really had that since he's been in Texas, or at least Sark says, we don't major in quarterback run game. No need to major in it, but situationally, it'd be great if utilized as a weapon. I think Sark will use it. I mean, the Arch package is a primary example of it.
Hey, so I got 2 thoughts on this. I'm going to throw one back to Rod in a second because, Bobby, we've talked about this before. But on Arch, the one thing that's going to concern Sark is the hit he took against Ohio State because he couldn't bring him back in the game. So that's going to be interesting how much he does it. Arch didn't come to Texas to run a lot. That's not what the Mannings and Sark saw the Sark as a good marriage. The threat of it, though, Rod, is what I want your thoughts on. I mentioned that the linebacker depth of drops may have to be a step or a step and a half closer to the line of scrimmage next year. You could drop with great depth because you weren't concerned about Quinn tucking the ball and running it. That's to me is the difference. Y'all talk about the threat. What does it change linebacker depth, Rod? If it's the threat of a guy that can get 5 yards on 3rd and 4. That's my question. Does it change how teams have to scheme? Could it open up the middle of the field more? Could Sark use QB draw every now and again just to help open up the middle of the field more?
Yep, I agree with you. I think you're 100% right about that. They'd have to. And like you said, you don't need to do it but a few times a game. You need 1 or 2 scrambles a game that hurts him for a first down. maybe one design quarterback run that hurts them. And ultimately, they, out of respect for the threat, they'll have those linebackers playing a little shallow, or their eyes, all right, constantly on the QB instead of diagnosing routes. So I agree. They could open up some things. It would definitely open up some things in basket. That's the beauty of just having the threat in the back. It changes the math for everybody. Makes the defenders less aggressive. As Jerry pointed out, force the linebackers to play a little shallow. Does may open up more the intermediate middle of the field. Like I said, I can't wait to see what the offense looks like with him in it. Not necessarily even utilizing the legs as much as you point out, but just like you point out, the threat. Just the threat of it will force defenses to respect it. They have to.
Here's the follow-up to what both you guys are saying. And this is from Amar's. Now that Arch is QB1, how does the offense change from yours, or does it? How does Manning change the playbook? We talked about the QB run game. What else does it change? I've talked about the back shoulder throws. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. He's going to use that. That's just not something that Quinn either did or was very good at, or Texas had the personnel for overall. What else changes?
Can I lead Rod into this? Can I lead y'all into this? The change in the type of wide receiver Texas recruited in this class, I think, is kind of as a dead giveaway. To your point, Bobby, back shoulder fade, 50-50 ball, more of a vertical outside the numbers passing game. We've got bigger, taller, longer limb guys. Now, I think that's a major thing we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see some of it. I don't think, guys, we're going to see as much of the perimeter just flick it and let them go plays. I think we're going to see more built from run, play action, Rod, more shots outside the numbers. And I think this field is going to be stretched more vertically. Does that mean Texas is going to be as good? That's going to come down to pass protection and arch. But I think that's what we're going to see.
Yep. Deep ball.
Anything in particular for you, Rod, in that?
The deep ball. I mean, I think that's obvious. Arch likes the deep ball. Sark wants to throw the deep ball. I think he was smart in doing it, but I think he decided to bottle a lot of those urges because it was actually working against the offense because you weren't converting enough of those deep shots. When Sark first got here, Sark wanted to chunk the ball deep a ton. And I think he'll get back to that with Arch because Arch has a better deep ball. And to Jerry's point, the types of athletes you're throwing to on the outside, I think he wants guys that can win one-on-ones more on the outside. Because Texas, their guys, we go look at their like yards per route run versus man coverage compared to zone. Texas receiver are better versus zone. And when they play teams that have the ability to play man and are good at it, their passing game isn't as explosive or as consistent. But the truth is, they won't play a lot of teams that can just play man like that. That's your Ohio States, that's your Georgias, that's A&M play a lot of man, but not a lot of teams can do it. They don't have the dogs to really do that. But you're going to play more and more teams like that when you get to the later rounds of the playoffs and get to the national title games we're talking about. So I think Sark understands I need more Ryan Wingos out there that I know can win one-on-ones when necessary. Yeah, of course those guys can beat zones. Zones relatively easy to beat. It's more zones by your mental acumen and processing very quickly as a wide receiver. Man is just, hey, can you go out there and create separation? Can you go out there and win 50-50 balls, make contested catches, that kind of thing? I do believe Jerry's right about him getting more of those guys at the wide receiver position. Ryan Wingo's the best example of it, of course. He did that a few times this year, and people didn't really like it. He just kind of took some shots. Like, hey, Ryan Wingo's one-on-one, let's go.
You know what another telltale sign of that is? Not just who they recruited in the high school class. The one position there's been a lot of really good guys in the portal is that shifty slot receiver. You know how many of them Texas has gone after? 0. Mm-hmm. That tells you how the offense is going to change right there.
Great point, Jerry.
Hey, Mars and William Nish, thanks for the super chats on that kind of similar topic of Arch Manning and how things change, whether it's the running in the red zone or just the offense overall. Another topic, Jerry, and this is I'm going to leave for you because is Rodney Terry, this is from Juan Garza, is Rodney Terry the head basketball coach at Texas in the fall of 2025? Trounced by Florida in Gainesville. Now, Florida's a really good team, but Jerry, your thoughts?
I think if the tournament's missed, it's very dicey. And look, if you get in the tournament again, does it get you next year? Potentially. If 7-11 may get you in the tournament out of the SEC this year. But here's the key. Texas has Missouri at home and A&M at home coming up. Missouri won at Florida earlier in the week before Texas lost by 24. They scored 83 against Florida, won 83-82. Texas has two road games outside of OU, scored 60 at A&M, 60 against Florida. I mean, again, it's a game. They have to score the basketball. You are not going to win games in this scoring 60 points in this league. You got to score 75 plus on the majority of nights. But if it's not an NCAA tournament, I think it gets very iffy because this is a brutally tough basketball league right now. I mean, really, really tough. You're talking about 9 or 10 team in the NCAA tournament. 10 of 16 are going to go to the tournament. And if you're not one of them, that means you've probably finished 5-13, 4-14, and I don't know if that gets you back, honestly.
Not Texas needs, and somebody mentioned this in the chat. I can't remember who, but I posted it. Moody Center right now, from people I'm talking to, is not what it was just 2 years ago from a fan participation. And if Chris Del Conte, who is the guy that will likely say yay or nay to a return of Rodney Terry, if Chris Del Conte doesn't see a full Moody Center for conference games, he's not going to like that. And at the same time, I think he's very, straightforward in the need to win and be in the NCAA tournament. We're rooting for Rodney Terry and his staff as much as anybody, in those players, Trey Johnson, Kaluma. Those guys are playing hard. It's not as good as some teams they're playing right now, in my opinion. This one's a fair thought from KD35. I am the best, and I agree with you. I'm going to say that before I even read the question, KD35. I feel in the spring window, Texas will lose more to the portal. Definitely guys fighting for their jobs that lose out, but great job here in the winter window, staff. I'm going to say this. Maybe KD35, but I don't think it's going to be like 10 guys. I'm thinking 3 to 4 or 5 max. So I'm a little bit different than it sounds like you're saying they're going to lose a ton of people. 3, 4, 5 is the number that I would say, because look, a lot of those guys have signed new agreements with Texas for the entire year now, too. And so they're locked in, some of the ones that you may be even thinking about. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what that means. But KD35, I agree with you. I just don't think it's going to be as large maybe as you do. What, Jerry, you have a thought on the personnel department there?
3 to 5 guys leave. I mean, I could see it because some guys look here's the tough thing. Rod watched it. I was going to say Rod's been in it. He wasn't part of this because he's a starter, but he's watched the talent grow in a program. There's going to be some second-year redshirt freshmen or sophomores that could get passed up by a true freshman this spring.
Yeah.
And that's when you're getting really talented at some spots, is you aren't just guaranteed your 3 years to develop and you take over a starting job, because there's really good players coming behind you every year. So that's the thing to watch this spring, is who is that second-year player, maybe that sophomore, that redshirt freshman, that gets pushed or even beaten out by a true freshman in spring practice. Those are the things you're looking for, because it's a really talented true freshman class coming in right now. And 22 of 25 are there, but Jonah Williams not taking part in football. So 21 of 25 are there. That's a lot of talent to overcome. I mean, what happens, and just for instance, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but for instance, Melvin Hills looked at as a good rotational player. He's gained weight. He had a pretty good redshirt year, I think better than expected. But what happens if he gets beat out by 2 true freshmen in spring practice, guys? Does he stay? Does he not stay? So those are and I'm not saying that's going to happen to Melvin. I just use him for instance, where there's a lot of really talented kids coming in. It could happen in the secondary, Rod, with a young safety or corner or somebody, where Cade Phillips may just come in and he just looks like he's going to be the guy. Well, then somebody's going to be looking at that saying, well, I'm not going to be the guy.
Yep.
That's what's going to cause, for me, the transfers in the spring more than anything.
I agree with that. It's a good point.
All right. I think there's going to be some. I would be reticent to say there's going to be a bunch. I'll put it that way. Samir Paul, let's turn our heads towards the national championship game tomorrow. I have a buddy, Chris, who's a Notre Dame homer. He thinks their schedule is as competitive as Texas or an SEC team. What do you think? Feel free to laugh at him, and any points I can use as ammo would be great. I'll say this. They've beaten Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah, it's legit.
That's pretty strong. Now, in season, A&M, they went on the road and took care of business against the Aggies. Louisville, they handled Louisville barely, 31-24. They dominated Georgia Tech before Georgia Tech kind of got rolling late in the year with Haynes King. They beat Georgia Tech 31-13. They beat Navy. They just trounced them and overwhelmed them. And then USC 49-35. As well as Army. I don't think Navy, Army, Florida State, Virginia, Stanford.
Nah.
Yeah.
Purdue.
It would be those teams, almost all of them, Virginia, Florida State, Stanford, Miami of Ohio, Purdue. Just put Purdue in there. Those are who would that Mississippi State would go 50-50 against those teams, I bet. And what did Mississippi State win? 3 or 4 games this year? So the A&M's quality of opponents until they got to the playoffs was not as good as Texas, even because Texas had an Arkansas in there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that in. Vanderbilt or teams that actually were decent as opposed to, lucky to like Florida. I mean, Florida State was horrible this year.
Yeah.
Notre Dame got Florida State this year. I mean, what do y'all think? Yeah, y'all agree with that? And does it have any impact on tomorrow night's game? I don't think it has any impact on tomorrow night's game at all. Because frankly, you look at that game and they've won these 3 other contests late in the season. I think they got a good defense going in. And one thing's for sure, Rod, I'd like your thoughts on this. They're talking about playing man against Jeremiah Smith, Rebecca, Carnell Tate, those guys. They play man. They better be able to stop the run against Ohio State. I'll just put it that way because Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are going to make them pay. What do you think of that matchup if they play man against Ohio State?
Yeah, I know it is. I will say this: isn't Leonard Moore starting for them? Is the young corner?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. From the Austin area.
Yep.
I remember watching him actually, and I remember saying in high school, I was like, I think he's the best cover corner in Central Texas. I don't think I've seen anybody better than him at the time. Like he can straight up. He's just a coverage specialist. Now, can you cover against Ohio State's 2 first-round wide receivers? That's a different conversation. They haven't seen anything like that. I would do it situationally. I wouldn't just go out there and play man-to-man all the time against them. Hell, Texas doesn't play a lot of man, but even Texas secondary didn't play them straight up. All right. They took Jeremiah Smith out with rolling coverage, rotating safeties over there, kind of keeping multiple defenders around them. I would probably go that route, but we'll see. I got Ohio State winning that matchup. I mean, we're going to do our live watch with it and see how it all works out. But, Ohio State's talent, it's just, Texas has, I think, top 5 talent in the country. And, I think they're more talented than Texas. And I don't know if there are two teams in the country that I can say that about, that I think has as much talent, if not more talent than Texas. They do.
One of my thoughts on this game is I think Notre Dame's injuries finally catch up with them. One, I think Ohio State's a better team, but look, Riley Mills, they've had some injuries, and people forget their All-American corner's been out for most of the year. They've overcome that because of the schedule they played in the regular season. To the question, I would think win-loss from the Power 5 perspective, they probably had the easiest schedule of anybody, as they had the worst win-loss percentage of the teams they played amongst Power 5s, is my guess, of anybody in the playoffs. But look, I just Riley Mills, they have some injuries. See how healthy Jeremiah Love should be, healthier than he was in the semifinal game. I think another big part of this game is I don't think Ohio State, Jack Sawyer, JT, it's been on how JT's ankle is, but still Tyleik Williams, all those guys, quarterback run game is not going to be a difference like it has been with Riley Leonard. That's what Notre Dame's up against offensively in this game. Ohio State's not going to let him run the football against him. It's going to – they're good against the run. Those two edges are good against the run. They set the edge. QB run's not going to win Notre Dame this game. Riley's going to have to throw it more than he has, in my opinion. And does he have the weapons to do it?
Well, I mean, Jaden Greathouse had a great game in the semifinal, or the quarter. Was it? Yeah, the semifinal. Yeah. Great game. The young man out of Austin Westlake. Wish him the best of luck tomorrow, as well. Good guy, good player, hard nosed player too. I feel like in this game, we're going to see if Ohio State is truly focused, or because look, Ohio State was probably more talented than Texas, in my opinion, in that game.
They were.
And they almost fooled around and let Texas back in. Or I mean, not that Texas played poorly or anything, but my point is Texas came back and was fighting and clawing there. They can't play with fire. I mean, Ohio State, Texas did it too. You play with fire too often and you get burnt. So I just don't know. I mean, something about Ryan Day.
That's versus Michigan, Bobby. Only versus Michigan.
Yeah, and big games. I mean, games that determine championships. I would say that. I mean, Jerry says, well, James Franklin, he thinks he's turned the corner. Maybe he has now that he has 2 running backs and a quarterback, right? But I just don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm there yet on Ryan Day. We'll see tomorrow. It could be a boat race. It really could. I don't think Notre Dame's going to boat race Ohio State.
No.
But it could be a boat race for Ohio State over Notre Dame. I'm aware of that. Right.
I want to play this one off of what we just talked about. Can we admit the college football playoff is too much? Not for me. But that's something else. We've gone to 8 teams. It's dragging out way too long. I agree it drags out maybe too long. But here's where I'm a little different. I love the playoff as it is. Actually, I want it to go to 16 teams, knockout conference championship games, and let's just start playing this thing. Instead of conference championship weekend, that's 8 teams hosting a home game. And just play it out. 16 teams, let's play it out.
Well, let me ask you this. I've got an idea for that. So one of the things they're talking about right now is that quarterfinal to be at a home game for the higher seed. Okay. What do you think about this? You lose in the round of 16 or the round of 8, you also get a bowl game. What about that idea?
I don't think fans travel.
What I think they would. They travel anyways, because if you eliminate conference championship games.
Yeah.
Okay. You start with week 13, the very next week, and you're in the 16-team playoff. And then after that weekend, you do the bowls. You decide the bowls.
Yeah.
And so that's a way to keep the bowls involved with 16 teams.
Yeah.
Just a thought process there, because one of the things that I think is happening is like Clemson. I'll give you a Clemson is a good example. They didn't play. They were in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
SMU had a great season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They played in the round of 16 or the round of 12 or whatever. So they didn't have a New Year's Day bowl. They didn't have a go have fun type atmosphere. They went to play in state college in driving snow. And so what if you had that, if that game would have been the very next week of your regular season, and then if you lose that game in round of 16, you get
slotted into a bowl game.
Maybe you're in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Maybe you're if the Cotton Bowl is not one of the 4 final bowls or 3 final bowls.
Bowls will love it.
What's that?
So the bowls will love it. They get these big time programs, and
right.
It help ratings, because then you get bigger programs into bowls. And no, it's not bad at all.
No, but to the point of the question, the only way we're going to get this thing truly worked out is if conference championships go away from a timing perspective.
Yes.
You roll right into the playoffs. You have 16 teams, 8 teams host, boom, boom, boom. And you rank them 1 to 16. Winning a conference championship does not mean you get a bye or the G5 doesn't get a bye, an automatic bye the way that was this year because of the conferences. You just rank them 1 through 16. You play it out. And then you would be done a week earlier, in my estimation. If you play,
I like what somebody said in the chat. They should start earlier. Week 0 should be the start for everybody.
Yeah.
Cut out the week 0, week 1 stuff. Just week 0, you start. All right, that beat week 1. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody just start earlier, 1 week earlier. Everybody. That's it. Like that one.
Let me ask you this: let's make sure ABC doesn't host a Texas game at 1 p.m. or at noon. August 23rd. Holy cow. What do you think about that? Well, I hear what you're saying, Rod.
Yeah, you're right.
But if they do that, if they do that, they need to make darn sure we're playing night games in Austin, Texas. Late August is already hot enough. But we'll see where that goes. A couple more questions here that we're going to get to tonight. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Most of you are probably watching the little Ravens-Bills action. Bills right now up 24-19 on Baltimore. Justin Yarbrough, was the 23 offense better than the 2024 offense, or was it that the SEC schedule slowed the offense outside the power running game not being there?
I think Bobby and I are going to disagree on this one.
This is good.
I think the 23 offense was better. So I absolutely do because of Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. Those two would have been your top 2 receivers this year and last year, in my opinion. And you had Jonathan Brooks, who's the first running back taken. I mean, I know you got a year older on the offensive line. I don't necessarily know that you got a year better, though, because Christian Jones was pretty darn good at right tackle last year. I think the offense was better last year. What do you think, Jerry? You said you think you were going to take something different than me?
Yeah, I was going to go a different route. I totally think it's the schedule that Texas played. I mean, go look at the NFL draft. Look at it. People like, well, Texas didn't play a great schedule. Look at the players they played on defense this year. I mean, Texas played Georgia twice.
Yeah.
I mean, and, everybody in the SEC had multiple NFL guys. Everybody in the Big 12 does not. And then you also had the injuries this year. The injuries were a big deal. I mean, if you think about last year's team, Jonathan Brooks didn't get hurt till late TCU game. Yes, Cedric Baxter was nicked up, but he still had 650 rushing yards and 150 receiving yards and was a 3-down back. And you had an offensive line that was healthy the whole way through, and your wide receiver core was healthy all the way through. And you had the injury to JT Sanders for a couple of games, but he was really the guy that had some injury last year until late that was really impactful. This year, I mean, you lost your starting running back before the season. You had to deal with some offensive line injuries that you hadn't the year before. I don't know. And Isaiah Bond was headed for a 1,000-yard season until he got hurt early in the Oklahoma game. Then some things happened after that, obviously. But you stick in a healthy Isaiah Bond all season in the Big 12. You think a healthy Texas offense all season in this Big 12 this year? I don't know. I think it's probably a pretty much straight push.
I'll say this. It's interesting because statistically, last year, because going back to, I think 2 things are true. I think last year's was better, and the schedule had it
doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. The two things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yes, I think the schedule was a huge factor, as Jerry's talking about, but I'm with you. I think 2023 was better. One of the strange things is that obviously statistically your run game was better last year. And statistically, I think you scored more points last year overall, but you were more explosive this year. You look at 20+ yard plays, you were more explosive this year than you were last year. And I wouldn't have thought that unless I looked at it. I think you had 108 20+ yard plays in 16 games this year. You had last year, I think you had 78 in 14. So you were more explosive, and I didn't expect that. So you can make the argument that this offense this year was a better offense because it was more explosive against better defenses. But eye test tells me I'm with you. I like the personnel overall better last year on the offense as a whole. And I think Quinn might have been better last year.
Yeah, he was definitely healthier for much of the year after he got back and going.
Maybe more consistent. More consistent.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I just looked up. If you look at a mock draft right now, just some of the mock drafts, Texas played 10 first rounders they're being mocked first round defense. 10.
What now? 10? Who are they, Jerry?
Well, just because Michigan's got 3.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, Georgia's probably got 2.
Georgia's got Mike 3, Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Malachi Starks, Ohio State.
You got Deion Walker on there?
Deion Walker's not even a first rounder in the
wow, so he's not even on there. Oh, A&M.
Hey, A&M, Scourton, Shamar Stewart. Hey, the corner Maxwell Harrison's getting some first round mocks. He was hellacious against Texas, by the way. And he's been out for like 6 games.
Yeah, he played good.
Texas played a lot better defensive talent this year. A lot better defensive talent this year. Lance Jackson, first round mocks.
Oh, what was the Oklahoma?
Sorry, not Lance.
Oklahoma has some good defenders too. They had a couple of good defenders.
Texas played much better defensive talent this year.
I agree with that.
NFL draft.
That's true.
Could be both, in my opinion.
It
could be a combo. And I will say this, Rod, is your point about explosive plays. Could it be that Sark was hunting those a little bit more this year because he realized he couldn't sustain drives as much as he maybe did the year before?
Agreed.
Your brain's telling you, okay, I got to hunt those a little bit more because I'm not going to just be able to sit up here and
run 14-play drives. You can't put together a 14-play drive. You had too many penalties, too many self-inflicted ones, and you didn't have a running game. So that's a great theory, Bobby. I love it. I think
it was winning football, right?
Oh,
At the same time, it wasn't a bad thing. Let's go get some more questions that we're going to go to. But first, Rod, I want you, if you don't mind, tell folks about our sponsor for tonight. That is Rogue Shop.
Oh, yes, Bobby. Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you to our friends over at rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. If you use that promo code you see there right there on the screen, on Texas, you'll get a very special discount from our very special friends over at Rogue Shop. I had a member of the On Texas football family actually approach me and say, Rod, love Rogue Shop. They said they were having some sleep issues and they couldn't sleep and they tried Rogue Shop. And they said they swear by it now every night because they have a ton of different products. They didn't tell me exactly what they were using from Rogue Shop, but there are a ton of different products, variety of different things available to treat ailments such as sleep deprivation, or maybe you got aches and pains like I do because of all my playing days in the NFL, or maybe you have anxiety issues, whatever it may be. Check out rogueshop.com. They have a great inventory of items, folks, that can help you with a number of different things. They have oils and creams, flour, gummies, vitamins, so much great stuff. You can check it out at rogueshop.com and you'll get that very special discount when you use the discount code on Texas. Thank you very much to rogueshop.com.
Thanks, Rod, for doing that for us. If you appreciate you guys, appreciate rogueshop.com. Richard and those guys do a great job over there. This one is for all of us, if y'all don't mind. Bobby from Kenneth Cassidy. Thanks, Kenneth. Do you guys think we are playing with fire depending on CJ Baxter coming back healthy? It doesn't seem very smart to me. Look, Jarrett Gibson was, you can say what you want, but he was not the answer as the big back for Texas this year. And running back is not necessarily a position that takes a while to find a home in college football. So my question to y'all, is Texas playing with fire if CJ Baxter doesn't return? Because we don't know if Jarrett Gibson's the answer. Jerry, I'll let you go first.
Well, that's what I've said. I think what happens this spring, I think to have some patience are required, though, because there's the spring portal period as well. What if James Simon comes in and is really, really good? Then they're not going to go to the portal for a back. But what if the freshmen come in and Jarrett Gibson still has fumble issues and James Simon is good, but maybe he doesn't bust through the door? Now, that I think is, and whereas Christian Clark and Cedric Baxter, as far as their rehab at the end of this spring, not on the field. They're not going to be on the field. Where are they at in their rehab? So I think there's some factors there. But if they go to the portal in the spring for a running back, obviously they're not going to go after some starter level guy. They'd be going after a piece. But if they go after a piece, that would tell you that, okay, maybe Cedric Baxter is not as far along as they thought. Maybe James Simon's going to be a really good player, but it's still going to take some time. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. So I think it's a spring decision. It's always been a spring decision because they want to see where Cedric Baxter and Christian Clark are at. And I think inside the building, they're really high on James Simon. They just want to see it in the spring.
What do you think, Rod? They playing with fire?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit, but I don't know if they have a ton of options. I think Jerry's right. I think when the spring portal opens up, maybe they'll look at it, but I don't know if there'll be anybody that'll feel the specific need they are looking for, which is, like you pointed out. What'd you say the other day, Bobby? There are a lot of what is CJ?
Like 225-pound guys that run 4.5.
It ain't a lot of guys out there like that, and that's kind of what you need, and you have that. So I just think at this point it's a delicate situation. As a coach, you hope for the best, but you got to plan for the worst. So they should have contingency plans in case CJ Baxter is not necessarily ready to go, and they can't trust the young guys as of yet. So whatever that plan may be, and maybe that's something that's already still on campus or something got to explore, but I think it should be a top priority for them, because I think a big part of their red zone issues and goal line issues, I was talking to Coach Shipley about this, he thinks it just might be running back, the types of backs you have. You just don't have those. Anybody, we went and watched the Ohio State game, right? Take versus Ohio State. There was no doubt that when they got down on the goal line with them running backs, that they
and it was Judkins, not Henderson. It was Judkins.
Exactly right. It was like, you can stop that guy. He's got a mix of speed, twitch, and power that will not be denied in that short area, right? Yeah. And I think you need to find nothing wrong with the backs you have. You have great backs, but James Blue has a different skill set than Trey Wisener and CJ Baxter. You need to find one. That's how Rojo and Bijan was. There's no way you're gonna stop them dudes once they were inside the 5. Like, it was pretty much like it's a wrap. It's done. And I feel like you need to find backs with that type of skill set and that aggression in their running style. So it may be just a running back thing. I know it sounds I would make it that simplistic, but it could be.
I want to address something real quick. Was in the chat, people were saying, should Texas take 3 running backs in a class? Here's what I'll say. One, it's not going to happen because they're not going to allocate that much NIL funds to 3 highly ranked running backs. 1. 2, you can't do that. I mean, like, if you went to Forney and say, hey, Javion, we love you, but we're going to take 3, he'd be like, all right, I'll see you at Michigan. Are we going to play each other? I mean, that's just not going to happen in recruiting. You're not going to get your top line guys if you go and say we're going to take 3 running backs. Like, we've had John Simon on the show twice, Bobby. You think if Texas said we're taking 3 running backs, James would be here at Notre Dame? He'd be at Notre Dame. Yeah, that's not going to happen. You have to take – I think you'll take 2 high school backs. If you need a portal filler, you'll do that.
All right, let's go to the next question, and it allows us to kind of circle back with what we started this conversation on tonight, talking about Sark's extension through 2031, talking about Brandon Harris, the GM for the University of Texas, getting a big raise, a salary bump. This from Coachy Samuel, and I agree with him. It's hard not to trust Sark with the program after 3 winning seasons in a row and 2 semifinal appearances in a row. Are any of us 3, the 3 panelists here, I would even like to know if there's anybody out there on the chat that doesn't agree with this. Because last year, I think you'd still hear some people saying, I don't know if we trust him yet. He's got to do more. Now, is there anybody that's not saying this? I mean, it's really rare to do what he's done. I mean, really is. He's the only one in college football that did it back-to-back years. Mm-hmm. He gets the benefit, even with a bad play call on 2nd and goal from the 1. Mm-hmm. He gets the program pass, right, for his program overall. Does everybody agree with that? I've got to think they do. I mean, Rod, you?
I initially, when Sark got the job, I was like, just show me. At this point, I was like, I got to be in the show me. I was in a show me state of mind. Just show me, and I'll believe as I go. And then you have to win me over. So he was in a position where he had to kind of win me over, period. And 2021 did help the case. But there's no doubt now. I mean, you have to be blind and delusional not to be able to see the drastic improvement that the program has made in such a short time span. What are you talking about? And in every level, and you're talking about in every way, right? You're talking about developing guys for the NFL draft. What are you talking about? The culture of the program. What are you talking about? Just winning on the field. You're talking about situational football. When you're talking about addressing issues and concerns that are limiting your program from being a championship success. All those things. I mean, he checks the box. At this point, we're nitpicky. I mean, there's no doubt. When we're picking apart things, we're running out of stuff to criticize the program about. It ain't easy to find things because they've done such a great job, and they're only a few small things that are keeping this program from getting over the hump. And I think we all believe now. That's even more so a testament to what Sark's done. Now we all are believers. Not only do we trust Sark now we believe that he can take us to the promised land and win a national championship. That's different. Because you can trust your coach that he can, put together a program that is, worthy of your prowess as an institution, as a blue blood, and that the culture will be good. All those things that are positive, and still not believe that you got a championship caliber coach. Like, I still don't necessarily believe it. I think now there are some people that are starting to believe that, oh no, Sark can win a championship, not just get the program back to prominence, but he can actually be a championship caliber coach at Texas. So I don't know who would question whether we should trust him at this point. I'd have to question you at this point. If you're questioning whether he's doing a good job and whether he's got the program heading the right way, there's no doubt. Crying off a yacht. That's what we do now. We cry on a yacht, baby, because of Sark.
Kevin Eltife and Chris Del Conte clearly think he is, giving him an extension through 2031. All right, this is a good one. Thinking about it, KD35, very early, but who are the locker room leaders in 2025? Who are the leaders on this team? A lot of leadership lost. Jade Barron, Sorrell, Quinn Ewers. Who are the leaders? Trey Wisner and Cedric Baxter. Cedric Baxter was going to be a leader for this team going into last year, right?
Yeah.
Jerry or Anthony Hill. Yeah.
Michael Taft, Anthony Hill on defense. Look, I know it's his first year starting, but Arch he's going to be a leader. He's been in the program. It's not like he's coming in and having to learn a new locker room. They command the locker room. They know him. He knows them.
He's not a true freshman. That's going to have to,
or he's not a transfer quarterback in a competition, right? Look, I think leader by example is going to be DeAndre Moore.
Oh, I like that. It's good.
Yeah.
Rod,
good. What about offensive line? Cole Hudson, maybe DJ Campbell, Ethan Burke.
Ethan Burke's a good one. Guy now. Yeah, Ethan Burke's a good one. Got starting reps under his belt. Yeah, I think that first of all, you talked about Archie's at a natural leadership position, but I think now you have a culture where, because like I said, I remember when we got to a good place at Texas. By the time 2002, by the time I became a senior, I was looking forward to the leadership role, right? It being my secondary. I can lead the way, make sure that everybody stays after watching film. They can come to my place and watch film. I was giving the pep talks before the game, right? Making sure that everybody had really good practices. Everybody was dialed in. Like, I remember looking forward to that being my role. After watching Quentin Jammer in there and watching guys before me have that role. And then looking forward to making sure that Nathan Dasher and Michael Huff and those guys also were going to take pride in it. And I think you're back there again, where there is this passing of the torch from leadership that is moving on and departing to the new leadership. And I think there is that connection now. That was something that was lost for a while. I talked to Quandre Diggs about that. I was like, when did they lose that? Because you were in the locker room with us. And he's like, I don't know when they lost it, but they lost it. And now I think they got that connection again. That's up to the players, by the way. Coaches are just hard for them to be able to supplement that or to cultivate that. That's up to them. That's a pride thing in DBU and the players that I took pride in developing. You know what I mean? That I was helping coach those guys up. It was my secondary to a certain degree. And I think you're going to have a lot of guys who take on that role and take that mentality.
We missed an obvious one that Cisco Diaz brought up, Trey Moore. He'll be a leader on this team. They were considering him one of the leaders before he ever played a game at Texas. I want to hit this real quick. Speaking of running backs, is KJ Edwards the guy in 2026? I think there's three guys to watch in 2026 right now at the top. Doesn't mean other guys, because Ricky Stewart wasn't at the top early on, then went to short choice, went back out and looked at these guys. He said, you know what? The kid at Chapel Hills is as good as any of these guys we're looking at, in his opinion, maybe outside of James Simon. But it's KJ Edwards at Carthage, it's Javion Osborne at Forney, and it's Amari Latimer at Tyrone Georgia at Sandy Creek. And he's that bigger back. He's the guy we're talking about, by the way. He is that power downhill guy that would push a pile and will score the ball and will get tough yardage for first downs. He's that guy. He's going to be a 5'11", 225-pound guy. He's about 5'11 and a half, 210 right now. But he is that guy. But those are the three backs right now to know.
Good stuff, Jerry. Last one here. And I want to ask, before I go to last question, about Colin Simmons as a potential leader. I hear he does a lot of the right things off the field. Just putting that out there. Not saying I don't know. I'm just saying it. King Kunta, any word on Brandon Baker? Is he good enough to start at right tackle? Jerry, you may have some insight there.
Yeah, he definitely. Texas is very happy with where he's at. They also think Kojo has a lot of upside. And Kojo just turned 19. I mean, he's 3 years in, 2.5 years in. He just turned 19. He was so young when he got to Texas. But yeah, Texas is very high on the future of Brandon Baker. As all three of those freshmen, by the way. I'll say it again. Remember Nate Kibble's name, and then Daniel Cruz. I think best case scenario for Cruz would be develop one more year at center, because this was the first year he ever locked into it. But if he pushes Cole Hudson and Connor Robertson, then all bets are off. But Nate Kibble too. Nate Kibble's going to play next year. I'm not saying he's going to start. He'll play. He's really good.
I missed this conversation earlier, and I'm going back to it, Stoneman. Bobby, are schools like Texas Tech freaking out a bit over the Title IX inclusions for the settlement, since it appears they may have been counting on using more of the money for NIL? I think a lot of people are freaking out a little bit. I would say this to you. That ruling saying that the funds put towards NIL essentially had to be equal between men and women's sports. So the $20 million or so that Power 4 schools would be giving to their players would be $10 million each, which means football. A lot of people have $15 million alone just for football earmarked. Yeah. That would be going away under this new ruling. What has come out since that ruling just on Wednesday or Tuesday of last week, Stoneman, is that the political climate is such that we don't think that ruling, people don't think that ruling is going to stand under a new administration. So that's the best way I can put it. I'll also say this. I don't know enough about the legal ramifications of Title IX. I'm not a Title IX specialist or any of that other stuff, nor am I advocating it be one way or the other way, because I don't know what the actual law, would dictate. But it's very interesting how political issues like this can be used as a political football. And we're just talking about sports, so interesting. All right. I think that's going to be it. Tomorrow night, don't forget, speaking of political, there's a new president starting tomorrow, so we'll all have that. But tomorrow night is what I'm actually looking forward to, because I'm a college football fan. And that means, Jerry, you and I will be hosting Talking Ball. Rod B will be coming in. CJ Vogel will come in. We may have some other people stop by as well. We're going to do a little game watch. We did this for the NFL draft, guys, and I just had a great time when it wasn't necessarily only about Texas, and we got a chance to talk a little ball while also watching some other teams play. Maybe we see some things we like and want to talk a little bit further about. Jerry or Rod, y'all have anything left before we let people go?
I do. Jason, he said the two Carthage kids are awesome. KJ Edwards and DeQuavies Beck, the linebacker, will be at January 25th, Junior Day. That list continues to grow on TexasFootball.com. I actually put out today, I think we broke that news, Naeem Burrows, the jet fast wide receiver from Bowles, and his family are going to be in Austin Saturday. This will be his first ever visit. Texas is battling Florida and Clemson there. But there's a third Carthage kid. Go watch the other linebacker, Crawford. I think it's Chase Crawford. He'll end up with 15 offers. He's way underrated. They have 3 really good ones on that team.
Ooh, nice.
All right. Want to mention one last time. Oh, Rod, go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out Jeff. Jeff threw out a super chat that we hadn't gotten to. I just wanted to make sure
did he?
Yeah.
Here it is. Let's do it real
Hey.
quick then, guys. Guys, are we going to spend $30 million on players in 2025? What are your predictions for Monday night's TV ratings? I don't think it's going to be 30. I think it's going to be more like 25, 27.
Wow.
Based on what I'm being told. What are your predictions for Monday night TV ratings?
34 million.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We need to talk about this too, because someone put out a list, Rod and Jerry, about the most watched college football games in the state of Texas this year. Texas was in 8 of the 12.
Yeah.
Dominated.
A&M had 2 games that didn't include Texas. SMU had 2 games that didn't include Texas. Baylor, Texas Tech, Houston, and TCU, none of them appeared ever in the top 12 rated games.
Yeah,
Jeff, I bet you know what I'm talking about because you always keep up with the ratings, bud.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I'm going 34, 35 million for that game tomorrow night.
What was the Jerry, do you remember what the semifinal was?
No, wasn't close.
20?
23, 24.
Yeah. So we'll see.
It's a Monday night, bad weather around the country in the South. I think the number is going to be really high. I think it's going to be the most watched game since Texas USC is my prediction.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
That's pretty bold. All right. Hey, by the way, Jerry mentioned on Texas football, the junior day is this weekend. We've got a lot of recruiting coverage for you over at ontexasfootball.com. We have a special right now. Use the promo code OTFOG. That's OTFOG, and get a 1-year subscription to On Texas Football for just $49.95. That's $10 off the regular annual price. Again, that's OTFOG. Use that promo code at ontexasfootball.com. We will have a lot of recruiting information and other stuff going on. It is the best deal in the market, in my opinion. All right, guys, thank you all so much for joining us on this Sunday night. Go watch the end of this Baltimore-Buffalo game. Baltimore trying to get back in it. They're down 8 right now with the ball with 3 minutes left. For Rod and Jerry, I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks also to our friends over at RogueShop.com. Use discount code ONTexas at RogueShop.com for a 10% discount. You guys have a good one. We'll see you again tomorrow morning for coffee and football. Then tomorrow night, if you're hanging out with us for the national championship. You guys have a good one. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.